for New York.
Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Dan Clark. For the first time in state history, New York is planning to approve a state budget next week with a price tag of about $200 billion. It's due on Wednesday, and we probably won't know a lot of details until the day before. But the state budget is hugely important. It decides how much money goes to schools, how much the state spends on health care, and much, much more. Just a lot of different things. And all of that affects your tax bill. Your property taxes or your rent depend on how much local governments get from the state. If they don't get enough, your property tax bill goes up, and vice versa. The same is true for income taxes. That's how the state gets most of its tax revenue. And when the state needs money, Democrats usually consider raising taxes on the rich. That conversation is happening again this year, given the economic consequences of the pandemic. And despite some pretty strong opposition from some, Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins said again this week that tax hikes on the wealthy are still very much on the table.
In terms of the budget, yeah, we are still looking at revenue raisers. We put a number of them on the table. And so we are looking at a way to sustain our ability to pay for the things that we know are important and that we know New Yorkers need.
Governor Cuomo is against raising taxes on the rich, saying it could drive them to another state and we could lose their tax revenue altogether. And that could be a sticking point as lawmakers negotiate the state budget with Cuomo in the next few days. And we may also have a deal to legalize marijuana. There's just a lot going on. Let's discuss that and more with Zach Williams from City and State and Marie French from Politico. Thank you both for being here. So let's start with negotiations on the state budget. Zach, I want to start with you. We are talking on Friday morning. The budget is due on Wednesday. There is a disagreement over taxing the rich, but obviously that's not the only thing in the state budget this year. Where do things stand right now?
Well, you know, somebody pointed out if the Democratic lawmakers really want to steamroll the governor on anything, they need to get going and get legislation submitted 3 days before the April 1st deadline. We'll see, you know, we'll all be checking, see if those bills are inserted over the weekend. But, you know, the taxes is a big issue, education spending, of course. There's so much in this budget. It really is one of the opportunity to really get things done in Albany each year.
What an interesting budget this is this year, because we started the year with a $15 billion deficit in theory. That's disputed by some. And then we got $12.5 billion from the federal government. So there was this $2.5 billion gap, which is still like a lot of money. It's just like an incomparable amount of money. But in my head, I'm like, wow, this is so great. We only have a $2.5 billion gap. So there's just a lot going on. Marie, can you talk us through where things stand with the environment part of the budget? Because we've talked about that on the show before, but I feel like it's been lost in the weeds. In January, the governor had a very ambitious rollout of what he wanted to do in terms of climate change projects and just like a lot of different things. I think he made a whole day out of it as part of his state budget presentation.
He did. Yeah, he announced a few, awards of renewable energy projects from offshore wind to onshore renewables, and those were actually mostly off-budget issues, though. What's in the budget, I mean, on environmental policy is kind of slim, but there is, this push right now by environmentalists to try to get the $3 billion Bond Act in there again, which, as you know, was passed last year and then yanked by Cuomo's administration because of concerns about the budget situation with COVID.
So do we see that going in? Like, what are the conversations on that? Because obviously the state's finances aren't in a great place still, but as I said, we got $12.5 billion from the feds. Things seem to be looking in a positive direction. Do we see the Bond Act included?
I think it's still a divide. The Assembly environmental leader, Assemblyman Steve Engelbreit, is kind of hesitant to include it in the budget. He's like, let's wait a little bit, let's see how things turn out. Are we worried about putting it on the ballot before voters without, a lot of confidence that it would pass? And, that's sort of still a debate going on, but environmental groups are certainly putting a lot of their energy into lobbying for that and pushing for it to be included. Cuomo hasn't addressed it recently, but at the beginning of the negotiations, the budget director said, we'll look at that, we'll have that conversation with the legislature.
And it wasn't in his executive budget proposal,
It
right?
was not, no.
Okay.
And they want to rename it. It won't be the Restore Mother Nature Bond Act.
What do we want to do with Mother Nature now?
We don't want to even mention Mother Nature. We want to say
Okay.
clean water, green jobs, I think there's two different names floating around, but it's more focused on, what does it actually do?
Well, that certainly sounds nice. Speaking of green, Zach, we may have a deal to legalize marijuana. We are speaking Friday morning. A bill has not been introduced, but several lawmakers have told me in recent days that there is a deal. They're just working out the kind of technicalities of the wording. As you and I both know, when you come down to law, words really matter between like will and shall and must and just small words like that. Do we know where things stand right now with marijuana?
Well, it really looks like the final language of the bill is going to be much closer to what state lawmakers have been proposing for years, in fact, than what the governor unveiled earlier in the year. Home grow, 40% of future tax revenues going to really restore the damage that the war on drugs has done in communities of color in particular. The list goes on. We'll see what the final legislation says, but just the fact that this is being negotiated before the budget is a good sign of where things stand with state lawmakers and versus the governor.
Right. Andrea Stewart-Cousins, the Senate Majority Leader, said this week, I asked her if it was going to still be included outside of the budget because the bill has to be introduced and then it has to age 3 days under state law. So in theory, if they introduced it today, they wouldn't be able to vote on it until Monday or Tuesday, and the budget is due Wednesday. So it is a really interesting dynamic where they're negotiating this $200 billion mess and then marijuana beside it. So there's just like too much in this budget. Another big story this week from the Albany Times-Union, Marie, was this story about the governor getting preferential testing for his family members, COVID-19 testing, at the start of the pandemic. Can you lay out kind of what we're talking about here and how people have been reacting?
Yeah, so reporting from the Times-Union, as you said, and the Washington Post and the New York Times has said that Cuomo arranged to have, or people in his administration arranged to have family members and, top-level folks close to him get testing, have people go to their homes, get the test, take the test to the lab. Sometimes apparently state troopers drove the test samples to Wadsworth, where a lot of the early testing was done, and sort of give those test samples very high priority to the point where they would get results much sooner perhaps than, a power plant employee who was needing to get tested so he could isolate would get it.
So, Zach, how are lawmakers reacting? Do we know if this is going to be included in the Assembly's impeachment investigation or the Attorney General's investigation? Well, I guess not, because that's on sexual harassment primarily, but where does it go from here?
Well, the Attorney General has said that she just doesn't have jurisdiction over the matter, but Assembly Judiciary Chair Charles Levine has hinted that this could fall in the purview of the ongoing impeachment probe. I think what's so interesting about this issue is, a lot of the accusations against the governor, sexual misconduct, for example, or a toxic workplace environment, have really had little to do with, his handling of the pandemic, which made him so famous. Obviously, nursing homes was a different matter, but just the fact that he was supposedly giving preferential treatment to his own family members, I think really undermines the moral capital that he accumulated throughout the pandemic as the can-do governor who was out there to save New Yorkers and just kind of play it straight.
Does this put any more pressure on him to resign or be impeached?
Well, we'll see. At this point, it looks like nothing's going to make the governor resign.
I agree.
Something that we learned earlier in the week was that the Assembly impeachment probe is not going to conclude anytime soon. Months probably, which means all of this will probably stretch out into the summer. We'll see where things stand with the governor then. But right now, I think state lawmakers are really eager to kind of pounce on his supposed political weakness and really kind of get what they want in the state budget. This is politics, and you're either up or you're down, and state legislators are feeling pretty good of where they stand with a few days to go.
Yeah, I think so too. But we have to leave it there. Zach Williams from City and State, Marie French from Politico, thank you both as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.